Hello, welcome to Women's Ministry. Today's topic is on parenting and mothering strategies to help kids in challenging times. And I'm sure if you're a mother or even an aunt or grandmother, you know that sometimes children struggle. I know my kids did. And how can we help them? Well, mothers help kids navigate through any times. And there are times in our child's life that they need our help. I know kids like to try to figure it out on their own, but sometimes they need help. Maybe they struggle with something in school, maybe it's a change in what they're going through, like from puberty or from uh, preteen to puberty, and they have questions and they're frustrated. And sometimes they don't even want to ask. But kids go through challenges themselves, just like us as an adult. So we're going to talk about how we can help in challenging times for our kids. Are you ready? I brought my coffee with me. Actually, it's not coffee, it's tea. So mothers help kids navigate changes in times of uncertainty because kids, they're just learning. They don't know what to expect. And while they're learning, we can help them learn in a positive way. Mothers play a central role in helping children adapt to change, especially in uncertain or shifting times. Their influence spans emotional support, stability, and skill building, all of which help children develop. Re- oh, they develop um, these areas. Resilience. That's what I wanted to say. So how can we do that? Well, for one, we can provide emotional stability and predictability. Sometimes kids need to have a stable environment. So how can we do that? Children often feel anxious when routines change because of uncertainty disrupts their sense of safety. Kids like to feel safe. I know as an adult I like to feel safe. And I'm sure kids need to feel safe too. Mothers can counter this by maintaining emotional steadiness, being present and predictable, and attuned to their children's needs. Simple, consistent family rituals like bedtime routines or shared meals, like having dinner. My work schedule was all over the place. I worked in the hospital and I didn't have a real set routine. So I made sure that on Friday nights, that was our time, to sit down at the table, have dinner together, and talk about what was going on in our lives. I wanted to find out how's their sporting activities going, how's school going, do they need help in any school project. So that was the time for us to sit down together and figure things out. It was a routine because we did this every Friday. I ordered pizza and they knew it and we got to sit down and talk. That was a routine. Simple, consistent family rituals like bedtime routines are definitely, you should have kids on a routine so that they can get their rest. Gives children a sense of control and predictability, which reduces fear and builds trust. So it does. When they feel safe, they have trust. And this comes from psychologytoday.com. Second one, validation and regulation with your emotions. Mothers often are the primary emotional regulators in children. By recognizing and validating a child's feeling, whether joy, sadness, or fear, mother teaches them it's safe to express their emotion. And we need that. We need to make sure that they can express their emotions. Because otherwise they hide it and you don't get to know what's going on in their life. So mothers teach them it's safe to express their emotion. This emotion validation fosters emotional intelligence and helps children learn healthy ways to cope with stress. Because if they're under stress, you're not. If they can't validate it or if they can't come to you, then they don't feel safe. You can find more of that kind of information on julietshouse.org. Number 3, modeling resilience through moderate stress. It's okay to have some stress, especially if they're getting ready to take an exam at school. That can be stressful. That's a little stress, not big stress. Rather than eliminating all stress, mothers can help children benefit from positive stress. And we should have that little bit of stress in our life. Keeps us going, keeps us above. It's challenging but manageable experiences. When supported by caring adults, stress helps children build resilience and effective internal stress responses. This can include preparing for transitions like changing schools, moving to a new neighborhood, or new responsibilities. It's time to clean the rooms. That's a responsibility. Number 4, teaching coping skills and accepting uncertainty. Mothers can guide children in accepting change by normalizing uncertainty and teaching coping strategies. These might involve problem solving together, like if he has a problem that's going on in school. And I've had my kids, they had some problems in school. So that's something we had to sit down and talk to and try to figure out what's the best way to handle them. Encouraging flexibility or using humor to lighten the tense situation. Research shows that internal skill building helps children become more adaptable and less reactive to change. Find that in raisingkidswithpurpose.com. Because we all have a purpose in life, don't we? And kids are still young and they're still trying to figure out what they're going to be when they get older, what's it going to be like in high school, do they want to go to college? So they're still learning. We learn all the way until we're dead. We never stop learning. Shaping secure attachment and self-confidence. We want our children to be self-confident. Yeah. From early attachment theory, mothers consist of responsive shapes a child's sense of security. So when they're born and they're in your arms, they're already starting to learn security. A secure attachment foundation means children feel confident in their caregivers' availability, which is essential for facing change with courage. And that's in julietshouse.org. Adapting to modern parent roles. Well, we started out with two parents, but then I ended up being a single parent. So that's when I knew that they would need more and more of me, and I had to keep them safe and confident. That's when we decided, okay, we got to have at least one meal together, to sit down and talk and see where we're at each week. So in today's evolving family structures, mothers often share caregiving responsibilities with partners. Equal involvement in child care and decisions making can give children a diverse role model, improve their social competence, and strengthen their emotional well being. Well, think about it. When our kids get older, let's say our daughters, they become teenagers, um, maybe 15 years old, they start helping with partnership of taking care of their younger siblings. Sometimes they don't always like it, sometimes they do. But it's a partnership for single parents, when they have an older child. Now, I had an older son that I had help me with his younger son. So when I didn't work, I had to work, or I had to work over, and he was of age, then he could help me out by law. He was old enough to do that. Or if the maturity, because sometimes maturity means ages 11 or 12, then, and a lot of your kids can take a babysitting course. And if they know what to do, then they can start babysitting. But otherwise, I think the best age is around 15, unless they've had a babysitting course. And they can start helping out. So, what does all this mean? Mothers help children in changing times by offering emotional stability, empathy, and predictability, teaching resilience and coping skills, and modeling healthy response to uncertainties. These actions create a secure base from which children can explore and adapt to the ever changing world. And as we notice, our world does change a lot, doesn't it? I'm going to explain that a little bit. So, here, get that one out of there, sorry. If we go back to think about it, we'll start back in 1989, where there was a commissioner of patents. You know what he said? He thought back then in 1899, he says, this is what he said: everything that can be invented has been invented. If you think back in 1989 or 1899, the world is still changing, isn't it? So not everything had been invented. He was really mistaken. He thought everything was done. There was no other things to be invented. We are still changing today. Never has an era seen so much change as people have seen in the last 100 years. Most of it brought about through inventions. So the change is the way the world is changing, and it's changing every day. We have new things. Look at now we have electric cars, where it used to be all gas cars. Even our cars are different, aren't they? So there are examples of some ways that life has changed. One is television and the horse. It used to be the horse, but it's no longer the horse. I mean, they still may use horses out in the farms to help plow the fields, unless they use their own, unless they use tractors. Now, I'm sure they probably do. Let's go back and look at the television. I think every household has a television. Television won't be able to hold on to any markets it captures after the first 6 months. This is what they're thinking. After 6 months, they're thinking that television will never be. And it says that people will get tired of staring at a plywood box every night. Hmm, but here in the 20th century, since 1946, almost everybody has a television. And since 1997, we have 98% of the people have at least one TV. Now, I have four. I have four TVs, two that work and two that don't. But I haven't found out the information on where to bring the two ones that don't work. And the two that I have, I've got one in my bedroom and one in the living room. And I don't use the living room very often because this is where I work and I don't need TV on. It interrupts my work. So I think about everybody has a TV. And they even have TVs in restaurants right now. I'll be surprised if they don't have any TVs in the bathrooms. That's how it's grown. TVs everywhere. Let's talk about the horse. They say that the horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad. A president of the Michigan Savings Bank advising Henry Ford's lawyer not to invest in the Ford Motor Company, and that was back in 1903. But what happened? They didn't want people to invest in it because they didn't think it was going to work. They thought the horse was always going to be around. We still have horses, but we don't use horse and buggy very often. Maybe go for a ride. I know the Amish still use them, but why not invest in them? Well, that's where he went wrong. Because most people at least have one vehicle in the family. Maybe they use it to go back and forth to work, to the grocery store, to take Sunday drives, but there's at least one. So a horse was not here to stay for transportation. That's how things have changed. But since then, people have changed. When young folks get a hold of their driver's license, they're gone. They get a car, they get a job, you know, they they try to become independent. Are they ready for that? Parents have got to be there in case they need information. They can help the child because they're usually children. They don't have a full development of the brain until they're about 25. So there's still going to be some questions. Many changes are not just inventions, they're ideological. So they're kind of thought of. It's in the brain. But in 1960, 6% of the 19-year-old unmarried white women had sexual intercourses. So they admitted that. They go out on their own. They're not within the family. They get their driver's license. They drive, to different places with their friends, maybe to the prom or other place. But they they're more independent then. Okay. In 1991, in 1900 it was 6%. In 1991 it was 74%. So the age has grown and the age has changed. Consider the suicide and divorce rates over the last 100 years. Lots of suicide in World War One and Two, and the divorce rate went up in the 60s. Norms have changed how women adorn their bodies, and value changes. Women's concept of beautiful or successful. So it depends on their bodies and what they were thinking. Are they beautiful? Are they successful? Well, things have changed since then. So it's up to us as parents to go ahead and be there for them when they're going through these changes. Mothers lack confidence in their ability to help prepare their children. So this could be a critical area where they're having trouble preparing their kids. Um, Prepare for their children for the world that is ever changing. So how can we as parents um, be there for our kids as the world changes? Well, for one is to keep note of what what your kids are going through. I've got I've got two boys myself, and sometimes I don't always talk to them. But when you do talk to them, pay attention to them. See what's going on in their life. Love one children for who they are and not what they do. That's very important. Love each child for who they are and not for what they do. Because sometimes children can get into trouble. You know, they do things that they shouldn't be and should always be there for them and not to judge them, but to accept them and know that they're going to make mistakes. Be actively involved in your child as they're growing. But let's consider today's cultural about telling them about God. How shaping them is also around your church, your belief, your culture, things like that. That should bring them to get them to know who they are, what their culture is, what their family belief is. But if we don't tell them or get them involved in it, then they're not going to know. So we need to make sure that we sit down and we explain things to them. Otherwise, you know what's going to happen? The media's going to take over. And the media is going to say who they are, what they are. We don't want that. We want them to be a family of who we are together. What does your culture say? What does your faith say? Do you read the Bible? Do you go to church? Get them involved in this. And it helps them to understanding who they are as a person. And that's what we want to accept is for our kids to be known as a person. Not by what they do, not by their faults, but who they are personally. What do boys learn about how to acquire love? To be strong, build muscle, and be aggressive? No, not necessarily. To be strong, to have good strength, maturity, confidence, to love, have compassion. That's what we want. We don't want people who are abusive. We want people, men who have strength to lead, to be their own person, to love one another, and to forgive. Well, James Bond was one of the characters from 1962 to 1999 has been a teaching boys that cool, manly, and tough get the respect, value, and the pretty woman. No. Someone who has wisdom, shows leadership, has strength, and has good family values. Have good faith, love, and can forgive. Just like Rambo and Stallone. Um, they they're kind of strong people, but they're strong men, but strong in muscle, not strong in faith. Parents in today's culture believe boys have to be toughened up to survive, and so boys are treated more roughly than girls. But we need to encourage more often to hold back the feelings, both positive and negative. Real boys, this author William Pollack explores, says why so many boys are sad, lonely, and confused, even when they appear fine externally. The boy code sends them into what Pollack calls a silent crisis. So even with boys, knowing that it's not just boys and girls, but boys need to be able to express themselves, express how they feel, you know, express how they want to live. They got to express themselves of who they are. God didn't create men to be shut shut their mouths and have no feelings. God created love in them too, and emotions, just like women. So we need to make sure that, the media doesn't get into their heads and say, oh, you're a man, you have to be quiet, you got to be strong. No, be strong in God, be strong in love, be strong in your faith. Not always strong because of muscle. For one, not every woman wants a man that's full muscle. I'd be afraid of them. Because what if they turn ornery and mean? Yeah, think about it. But we have a lot of social media that goes on. We have the media that tells men and women who they are. You know, women are supposed to be soft and quiet and sexy and skinny, and men are supposed to be strong. What about women who wants to love, forgive, and have good faith? Men can have that too. God didn't need us just to be this man. This person needs to be this way, and this person needs to be this. He brought us together. Yeah. So, and like this one, I come about. So some ads become dangerous in its subject. Dangerous. This person is really strong, so he's going to beat on this person. So I don't agree with that. Girls need to be strong too. Girls need to be strong in their faith and in their mind and know that they can do a good work. They can choose to be who they want to be. Do they want to be a mom? Do they want to be a doctor? Do they want to be a firefighter? Do they want to be a pastor or do women's ministry? It's not up to the world in the media to tell them who they are supposed to be. God created them who they are supposed to be. God love is about who people are, not how masculine or feminine people are. According to some cultures of masculinity and feminine feminism, there's nothing wrong with being, who you are. People live in the choices that are made for them instead of who they're supposed to be. God loves us because He's merciful, not because of what we do. And with that, you can find in Titus 3:35. Jesus didn't live in a 24/7 culture, yet said no. He still said no to opportunities and modeled time alone. So God knew, Jesus knew who He was. Nobody tried to shape Him. So mothers who are excessively busy model a value of busyness, sacrifice their own opportunity for silence, for hearing, and for developing and using gifts. Yeah, mothers get busy. They really do. I'm not saying that they don't. I've been busy. But we need to be able to make sure that we can read our children, or try to understand our children and be there for our children. If women love their children for who they are, they will let them fail. Well, not just to let them fail, but help direct them in a way that will help them. Um, Studies of kids emerged well through hard life circumstances show high levels of resiliency. Well, I know that there's been a lot of times where I've had struggles in my life, and I learned. And it wasn't easy. So it's like I've had times where, I became homeless. And like they say, sometimes when we do go through things, it does make us stronger. But what I found was going to God with my problems. He helped me and guided me. So without him, without God, you know, I would have struggled a lot more. Yeah, I could have gone to my mom in my 30s, but I waited on God. He was my father. And I didn't let people tell me and how to mold me. I became who I am by the way I believed, the way my culture was, my faith. That helped sculpt me. Jesus was my potter. He helped sculpt me, whatever you want to call it. He helped build me, made me strong to know that through him all things are possible. So, in conclusion, I hope for children what success will look like. Well, that they emerge knowing they are loved for who they are and deeply connected to the community and through faith, so their choices in lives reflect the life of Jesus. And that's what we want. So, because Jesus showed compassion and mercy, so should we. Jesus also stood up for what is right, so should we. Jesus knew enough about the social world to be a critic of it, and we should watch it to make sure that our children aren't persuaded to be a part of that. So that media, like parents, we should be willing to stand against culture pressure, reinforce one's love of our children and who they are, let them fall, and sit with them in their failure. And when they make a mistake, don't criticize them, understand them. I know sometimes things can be really harsh. Encourage connection to a community, like going to a church. But it all starts with you being involved with your children and help sculpting them to who what their purpose is in life. And know that yes, they are going to make mistakes. They're going to learn by the mistakes, but don't keep putting them down and criticizing them and said oh, you're no good, you're terrible, I don't want to see you again, blah, 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 blah. No. Forgive and reconnect. Because it's a parent's love that helps the child grow in truth, in justice, in belief, faith, and as a family. So I'll end it here, and God be with you. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the family and parenting. We'll say goodbye for now and have a blessed day. Bye bye.